everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wheat from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together we are Kenny and Renny, and that music that you may have heard before on your 1990 Mom's Relaxation CD disc that she got in the mail from TV this one night. That can only mean one thing. It's time for the K&R show tonight, folks. After a big Winnipeg Jets victory, 2-1 over the New York Rangers. Now, I don't think it was the best played game on either side here. I think it's important just for the Winnipeg Jets at this stage. With the Dallas Stars coming to town on Friday, a loss tonight would have been disastrous, okay? You would have been giving up 2 games on the Dallas Stars, 2 games in hand to the Dallas Stars. You would have only been up 6 points. If they beat you in their barn, all of a sudden there are 2 games in hand away from tying you in the standings and surpassing you in the standings. That can't happen for the Winnipeg Jets. You just got to, hey, what's the line? Just win, baby. That's where the Jets are at this stage. Just win. Doesn't really matter how you do it. And on the night tonight, I'll say this. I didn't think it was the best played game on either side, but at the same time, I think the Jets very much handled this properly in coming away with the win, in that they just did, that protection of home plate. That's what this game comes down for me. And let's just say this, the Sean Reynolds Award winner on this night would be Connor Hellebuyck. I mean, I thought he made 2 or 3 really key saves. And this, to me, is just what Connor Hellebuyck has become this season with the Winnipeg Jets. I know everyone talks about his numbers and everything like that. I've said it before, the way that the Winnipeg Jets play as a team, I think put him in a really good spot, but give him credit. He's not needed nearly as much as he's been in the past. And let's be honest with ourselves. I think like the way that this team plays in front of him, a la the Rick Bonus, we're going to get him rest by just being a better team around him. The guy's not going to take games off. We know that. So let's just make his job easier. The Winnipeg Jets have done that. They've been successful at that for a number of years. I think they're even better at it this year. Tonight's an example of one of those games where there wasn't a lot of challenges, but when there were, he was up to the task. I'll get into those because there's a couple ones that are obvious, Keg save of the game candidates, no doubt. So we can get into those later, those ones that I think he, jumped up. But other than that, I just thought this was a really, really tidy effort by the Jets, boxing out in front of the net, allowing him to see the shots that did come from the point, the shots that came from the point that he may not have been able to see. I thought that they were all blocked very well. There didn't seem to be a ton of challenges or times on the ice where Connor Hellebuyck didn't have an idea where the puck was on the ice. Maybe right in the closing minutes of the game where there's a wide open net for Mika Zibanejad, and he gets all of it wide of the net. That's how close that game was being to tie it up. There was another play the New York Rangers got in when they did finally get inside. They beat Connor Hellebuyck, but they don't beat the post in that situation. But the Winnipeg Jets, for the most part, I thought were absolutely great around the home plate. And a big part of that was Luke Schenn, ladies and gentlemen. I take a look at this guy. He walks into the lineup. First of all, the thing that strikes me about this player as he walks in, he talks about how he just wants to do what he needs to do to win, right? He's got this calming presence about him that I can just imagine if you're in the Winnipeg Jets dressing room and this guy walks in, like, you're just that much more confident, right? As big as he is, you can walk around a couple inches taller, but I think there's just like a quiet confidence about him. When they talk about, you like to have a guy who's gone all the way, a guy who's won the cup before. This is the kind of guy I think that pays off with, because there's a lot of people who've won the cup before. Hey, it's a perfect example, and this may be sacrilege to a lot of people, but all those years the Jets were going to the playoffs and they didn't really have anyone who'd won a cup before outside of Dustin Byfuglien, right? And the thing with Dustin Byfuglien was a very young man. So he was around for that when the Chicago Blackhawks won their first cup with him. But Dustin Byfuglien by no means was, the guy driving the bus for that team. He made a massive contribution. But there's lots of guys out there who will have won the cup before that you could pick them up, and they're not necessarily going to give you that, thing that you're looking for. Luke Schenn, I think, gives you that thing you're looking for because he's been in the league for a really long time. He goes on a run has a cup ring, and is able to kind of just take that quiet calmness that he brings. And outside of that, talk about a guy fitting into the system. I mean, walks in, couple huge blocks, throws some nice hits, but down the stretch, I think it was a power play in the second period that he blocks a shot. Late in the game, blocks a big shot. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and get it out of the way, because this is where we're heading. All know where we're heading. This is the Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnson Group got you covered plays of the game. For me, by Luke Schenn, who walks in and just now, I think, just gives you that look out there like you've got this player who's just going to make it that much harder. The Jets are already hard to score on, and you're going to get that much harder to score on in this situation here. So he comes out, does great. You know what? Handing out the award. Ken's not here for it. Too bad. Maybe he should show up on time one of these times, and he'll get to steal awards for himself. But hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Me thinks that the Kenny and Renny OGs Johnson Group Got You Covered award is going to find its way into the lap of Luke Schenn, not once, not twice, not thrice, but a number of times down the stretch here as the Jets head towards the playoffs. 16 games left. I'm saying it's going to be more than that. 4 more times. Hey, write it down, folks. We'll see if Renny is right on this one, because he usually is. Speaking of a guy who's right sometimes, every once in a while, he also, what he did get right was the best music in the business. So time to bring in Ken, everybody. Here he comes. Ken comes walking in here, as he always does, looking like $1 million. I pull out an old standard. I found out a long time ago, gray with yellow for some reason seems to work. And I don't think people understand, Ken, how much effort we put in to trying to look good here. I mean, let's just say we build off the effort of the folks at Vittorio Rossi. But I mean, look at this. My socks even match with this. If I could lift my feet up that high, my socks match.
Good job. That's Frankie's touch on you, buddy. Good job.
Hey, Frankie demands the best because he gives you the best, and he says, I'd like to see you return the best. And that's exactly what happens when you go down to Vittorio Rossi. So if you want to give your best and be given their best, head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will leave you walking out of that place looking your best, feeling your best, being your best. Who looked really good tonight, even better probably than you and I looked, was Luke Schenn in a Jets jersey.
Yeah.
It looked like he fit right into his team, walks in to one of the most now this was the interesting part, Ken. I'm going to pat the both of us on the back here, but we've said this time and again on this show, for the people who like to come in and be like, this is all Connor Hellebuck pulling this off, or this is this person, or this is that person. We've said for a long time, it's the structure of the Winnipeg Jets that's the star of this team. And we've talked time and time again on this show about the details of this hockey club. I thought personally tonight, Ken, you want to know what's going on wrong with the New York Rangers? They're a really good, skilled hockey team with terrible details. Terrible terrible details. And I thought that showed tonight against a team that's got good details. But to the point of structure in details, we asked Luke Schenn about what his first impressions were of playing with the Winnipeg Jets. And that is exactly what he said. He said their details are just so good. Their structure is so well, it makes it easy for me to fit in and follow those details. When you're getting analysis from K&R, you're getting the kind of analysis that Stanley Cup winning players will walk in after the trade deadline and give the very same analysis of the Winnipeg Jets when he's asked to describe what makes this team so good. He fit in brilliantly, I thought. Ken, what did you take away from Luke Schenn's first game in a Winnipeg Jets jersey?
Yeah, tremendous effort by Luke Schenn, and quite frankly, the pairing, Sean. Luke Schenn was excellent. I also thought Hayden Fleury, for a guy who'd barely played, I think 3 times in the last month after coming back from the injury in December, I thought he was excellent. So active in terms of joining the rush, not getting caught out of position, smart reads, and even Luke Schenn said it, simple plays. I thought Fleury's mobility was on display all over the ice, but the reason that pairing works so well, you got a little bit of yin and yang there, right? You have a stabilizing force, and you have a really smooth skating, individual in Fleury. I love the way that Luke Schenn played. This is what the Jets envisioned when they went out and got him. This is one of the reasons why the Jets were much more bullish than, a faction of the fan base was in terms of what Luke Schenn will bring. He brings several elements the Jets don't have a large supply of on the back end. He does a lot of things extremely well. He's very much a details-oriented player. And Sean, he answered your question quite simply and said, when I don't have the details to my game, when I'm not being physical, when I'm not blocking shots, I don't think he quite finished the sentence, but he basically was going down the line of, if I'm not doing those things, I'm not effective, right? So what was he doing today? All of those things. I thought that he was really smart in terms of when he laid the body out on the Rangers players. He wasn't chasing hits. I thought he had a smart in a smart and sharp way. He had a quiet start to the game, and then in the third period, when it got hard, he laid out a couple of players, including Arthur Kaliev. And I haven't seen any updates, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kaliev has a separated shoulder based on how he left the ice, Sean. Like I said, I don't know that I can say enough good things about Schenn. 1602, 1 shot on goal, 5 hits, 1 takeaway, 5 blocked shots, 208 on the shorthanded penalty on the penalty kill, and basically did everything that we talked about leading up to the trade deadline, right? So again, I get it. It's one game, small sample size. Sure. This is Luke Schenn's game. This is it. This is Luke Schenn after skating one time in a 5 or 6 day span. So his ability to absorb the information, his ability to fit in seamlessly on that third pairing and that revamped third pairing with Hayden Fleury. Quite frankly, Sean, that looked, again, we understand the Rangers are a bubble team, and you don't want to make these bold proclamations, and they'll need to do it against the Dallas Stars. But that looked like a defense core that can go multiple rounds, Sean, to me. And I thought that both guys on the third pairing really elevated their respective games. And I think that Luke Schenn is going to get even better and better as he moves along. And Sean, we saw it even today. And maybe part of it is because Neil Pionk was banged up a little bit after that Brennan Othman hit. But what did we see? In the last minute, at one point, we saw Luke Schenn standing beside Dylan Samberg while protecting a 1-goal lead. The guy's been in the building for a day and a half. So that shows you what type of confidence the Jets are going to have in Luke Schenn, multiple Stanley Cup winner with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And yeah, I thought it was just, and he also makes people around him, feel good about their own game, right? I mean, I think you just can't have enough of those type of players, the ability to clear the front of the net, and great choice on the Johnston group. Got you covered. A couple massive blocks, one in the second period, one in the third period with the game on the line and the Rangers on the power play. On a rare time where they were kind of scrambling a bit, Schenn just goes down and makes an easy block and kind of calms things all around him. And then just sort of tying up the bow with Fleury. Sean, everyone on this show knows my thoughts about his game and how I thought he should maybe be getting getting more ice time and more playing time. he just played with a calmness, Sean. And I think part of that is Schenn, obviously, as a partner, but he showed that calmness when he played with Colin Miller also. I just really like the calmness in Fleury's game, willingness to join the rush, but not while taking a ton of chances. 1407 for Fleury, one shot on goal, but I really like the way that those two guys played together. And if they can stack games like that, I understand what Scott O'Neill said this morning, and you understand why he's saying you need everybody, and that's true. But to me, that was a pretty strong opening salvo for that pairing as it pertains to maybe a game one starting lineup. And quite frankly, Sean, and let's get into it. I'll step back from the buffet. That looks like the Jets game one starting lineup if everyone's healthy. Don't you agree?
I said it on Hockey Central before the game. This is what you're looking at. Barring any injuries, you're looking at the game one lineup for the Winnipeg Jets on the ice out there. It's fascinating to see Fleury go from a guy who's like so rarely used to all of a sudden probably being in a position to be exactly what we're talking about here, one of their key guys. I think you want to talk about good analysis that we figured out on this show when everyone was talking about Logan Stanley and questioning why he remained in the lineup. The size clearly had something to do with it, right? Like once you find Schenn and get him into the lineup, suddenly Logan Stanley becomes a little bit more expendable for this team. And now you get to try and peruse other options. And Ken, I know from the beginning of the game, you were loving what you saw from Fleury. Someone had asked me about it. I think I did a hit out of on TV and radio out of Toronto earlier on today, and I believe I was asked about it. But Fleury going in as well. You get a guy who's got mobility. He's got size. Does he play punishing like Luke Schenn does? No, he does not. But size matters. It's just another big body. Now you've got two big bodies back there that you have to get past, but you've also got a guy who showed often tonight that he can activate and he can get up ice. It's expected in the NHL now that you have that extra layer of player that's provided by the defenseman to jump up. Sometimes both of them jumping up in there. You're not going to get that from Luke Schenn. So to play with Luke Schenn, you need the kind of player who is going to be a complement defensively, but also the kind of guy who can kind of lead the charge up ice. And then what that does, ladies and gentlemen, is it means that you can use that pairing anywhere. You can use them with the first pairing, with the first line, second line, third line, fourth line. You want to have that ability because now you've got that on all your defense pairings, right? You've got Dylan DeMello, stay-at-home defenseman. Josh Morrissey, who's jumping up into the play like crazy. Dylan Samberg, stay-at-home defenseman. Neil Pionk, who's having a great year points-wise and jumping up. Now you've got it on the third line as well. And if you take a look at all the defensemen available in that situation, maybe Ville Heinola is that other one for all of these people who've been screaming and stabbing themselves under the table in the thigh with the fork because they think Ville Heinola is the next Cale Makar, which was a storyline on this show at one point, Ken. Unbelievable. Yes, I know. But outside of that, Fleury gives you that size, which you're going to want. You're going to want to have that pairing able to kind of shut things down, to grind things down. Fleury has the size, has the strength, I would think, but also able to jump up. The Jets now have three. Hey, give Kevin Cheveldayoff credit. The guys that he's gone out to get have fit the structure, the detail side of the game to a T. And now what he's done is he's taken three lines and given each of them the ability to do kind of the same thing. The only thing that top line is missing a little bit of size. But it makes sense. If you think of it from that point, Fleury makes sense. This, to me, I agree, Ken, looks to be the line that is heading into the playoffs. I wanted to bring something up here. I'm in a good mood today. I'm generous. So I'm going to hand out a hot take, but the good kind of hot take, the smoking red hot take, which is going to lead us into our next conversation, Ken. But it's our main man, Tristan Rivers, who says, I think it's official. Perfetti has transitioned from a top six type player to a top six player. We talked a little while ago about the things that he needed to do to take that step. And Ken, all of a sudden, he just started doing them. And now on games like tonight where we've talked about this. We've been calling for this in these tight games where you need a guy to show up. These seem to be the games that Perfetti shows up in now, not we beat the team 8-2 and he jumped in for 3 or 4 points. So this is a absolutely smoke and take by Tristan Rivers, who always comes in and drops smoke and takes whenever he decides to grace us with his presence. And ladies and gentlemen, that is your KNR hot take, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything related to the hearth. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort is soon moving. You'll find it will be one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada when they do make that move. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside, folks. Visit Flame and Comfort. They'll take care of that for you. Ken, Cole Perfetti, what'd you see from him today?
Oh, loved his game. Again, and this is going to be a common theme here, but Perfetti coming up big when the games get harder. And that's a massive development for him, for the Jets, but especially for the team as a whole. I mean, this is, you touched on it. I mean, this is not, these are not, point padding statistics. Like this is a guy who is involved in the game. It was physical. He was not shying away from anything. He was involved all over the place. Very good defensively. I love the way that he pushed, helped push the pace in the offensive zone. Incredible patience, really good vision and poise. Now, again, I loved your question to him because, in real time, it kind of looked like a flub, right? It looked like he missed his shot, but actually it was so interesting, Sean, and I'm not trying to steal the credit because you asked the great question. Cole kind of admitted he planned on shooting, but then out of the peripheral, he saw Gabe Vilardi was wide open. So it wasn't a flub at all. He intentionally tried to stop shooting in the middle of shooting. And fortunately for him, the puck did not go far enough that it was outside of his reach. And he did a really good job to find Gabe Vilardi in the slot for an absolute beauty of a one-timer. And again, was there a bit of luck involved in the Vlad Namestnikov goal? Sure. But like high level, high IQ patience by Perfetti, faked the shot, went around the defender, and found Vladislav Namestnikov's stick. Yes, it did go in off a Rangers player, Sam Carrick, but the pass was in the right spot. That for a backdoor 1T, it just so happened to roll up the equipment of the Rangers player. But I love that line as a whole today. We talked about it, Sean, on this show. The last couple shows, Vlad Namestnikov went 8 games without a point. That is too long for a number 2 center. Yes, Vlad Namestnikov does a lot of other things when he's not producing, but part of your job as a number 2 center is to produce. So they had generated tons of chances, as Scott O'Neill pointed out today. Their last, 15, 18 game block, lots of good underlying numbers, lots of scoring chances, lots of high danger chances. But it's important for a guy like Vlad Namestnikov to be rewarded with some points. So, he gets his 11th goal. That's a strong number for Namestnikov. For Perfetti, couple points, gives him a career high. Again, I also loved his answer. He was happy about it, but happier that his game is translating into playoff style hockey. I get it. There are still 16 games left to play, and he'll need to do this in April, May, and potentially June if the Jets get on that magic carpet. However, his game is trending upward. It has been for quite some time. And quite frankly, it's something that has paid off for the Jets, right? I mean, I want you to finish your thought, but sticking with Cole Perfetti in that second line role and expecting him to take that next step has definitely paid off for the Winnipeg Jets.
See, this is why I'm the host. This is why I was going to say he clearly got the wake-up call. It's clearly when we were talking about, he couldn't be going through these wide stretches of time, or he couldn't just be contributing in these certain games. Cole Perfetti has entirely got the wake-up call that we've kind of been waiting to see from this player not playing the perimeter. What I loved about this on this night is the first goal. Let's be honest, it's a bit of it's actually one of the nicest snake charmer goals that I've seen in a while. It was the weave, it was the bob, it was the New York Rangers got lost in that. Yep. It was kind of pretty I don't know, the coverage was a little suspect, we should say, on that whole thing. But I don't know. What I liked about that is he shows he can pull that off. then he shows to me he's just going to take the puck strong to the net on the power play. And when he does flub it, he still has the wherewithal and the hands and the quickness and the reflexes to get the puck into a spot for a sure goal. But to me, after that, it's that one time he takes the puck and he just drives it straight up the gut into three players, splits the D, and goes straight in. Like the old Cole Perfetti from a time ago would have kind of, peeled off and looked for a guy or tried to do something else. In the end, it's this mindset of I'm going to keep going until you stop me. And I think that that's what happens with younger players, especially those like Nick Ehlers went through the same process. If you're not one of these guys who made your living in junior, just like you can see that Alexei Protas in Washington, like that's what he was in junior. That's what he is at the big league level. Just take it to the net. But when you get these players who can dissect and cut you up from distance, the super skilled players in the WHL and the USHL, wherever they are in junior, you'll see at some point they have to realize that they're not going to do that at the NHL level, and they have to get a more direct game. Cole Perfetti got the wake-up call, no doubt, with the more direct game. And you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. Chatted with him today. Sounds like they're busy as heck. So if you got work that you want Pristine doing, I'd get on that list for a call. You can also do that by calling Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. You'll be glad you did. And you know what? Since Ken triggered it, I'll go down that road as well. And we'll say that it did pay off, the Jets sticking with them. Big hitter, I think it was, trying to belittle me, I would say, Ken. Trying to belittle me because I said Cole Perfetti needed to be moved down the lineup to give other people an opportunity. They stick with it. It has paid off. I still say,
how about sticking with the second
take
line
at
as
the
a
time.
whole paid off?
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. But hey, if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca. There's a whole bunch of people on this show, Ken, who are going to have to, some of them are just going to have a new personality entirely, because their personality for the vast majority of the season has just been about Logan Stanley and hating Logan Stanley. Let's over and under this whole thing. 4 games, over and under the amount of games, over or under the amount of games that Logan Stanley plays to run out the rest of the season.
In the last 16 games, 4 games.
Yeah.
I'm going to say under, but not confidently.
Not confidently. And why? So explain.
Well, I'm just predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And today was the first time he was healthy scratched in 67 games. So he was hurt for some of those games. So again, I can understand if that number goes up, but I think that Hayden Fleury deserves a run of games. But I've thought that for a long time. Now, again, I'm fascinated to see how this transpires, because Colin Miller's had a good season, Sean. But unless Colin Miller is moving to the left side, it's tough to find a pathway for Colin Miller to see regular playing time.
Right.
Because he's not playing ahead of Luke Schenn. He's not playing ahead of Neil Pionk, and he's not playing ahead of Dylan DeMello. So his best chance is either to move over to the left side, or he has to have an injury for himself to be a regular. This is now, unfortunately for Colin, last year he was brought in to be the 7th guy and to provide some depth. And he went from being a regular this year to now being back in the number 7 hole. Or that's sort of how I view him. We know that the Jets like Stanley as a deterrent, but as you mentioned, Luke Schenn does everything the Jets want Logan Stanley to do, but he does it better because he's 35 years old and has played over 1,000 games in the National Hockey League. So I do see a pathway to Hayden Fleury getting 12 or north of 12 games on that third pairing, provided he plays like he did today. I said this to someone prior to the game. there was stretches in the first half. We know that, I mean, again, when Hayden Fleury was playing on the second pairing, there were some good moments with Neil Pionk, but there were also some moments where I would say that, he was maybe playing a little bit too much, or maybe a little bit higher on the depth chart than he can excel at. As a third pairing I think he can excel in that type of role when he plays a simple game, and he played that game today. Again, but I'm not sure how they're going to play this. And we did our best to kind of shake the tree a little bit and see if Scott Arniel would leave a trail of breadcrumbs. But he was quite, evasive and, complimentary in saying he needs all his guys. And, you normally need 10 guys. You have the ability to have 11 if you have Coughlin as 10, and maybe, Solomonson as 11. But I think if those guys are healthy, that has to be the 6 that are in the starting lineup for game 1. That's what we said at the beginning and the outset of the show. That's what I'm saying right now. Now, how the jockeying for position goes and how those games against Dallas go could determine what things look like in terms of maybe having the ability to rest some players, Sean. So I think that also could get that number above 4 if the Jets take care of their business in the games against Dallas head-to-head. If there's not as big a threat on number 1 in the Central, then you might see a little bit of in and out of the lineup. But I think they're going to stick with this 6 for the majority of the 16 games, is my personal view. What about you?
Well, you had said that Scott Arniel said he needed to keep all his guys involved. He also said that they were going to need Ville Heinola. And clearly in the end, that whole storyline about him coming back from injury and all that kind of stuff, that really did not materialize. Like, if we're looking at the actions of the coach here, the actions have spoke louder than words. Like, Dylan Coughlin got in, did really well. You wanted to see more of him, and then that was it. You didn't see him anymore. I think the answer is staring us right in the face. I think it's the answer we've been giving the entire time, Ken. I think they needed Logan Stanley in the lineup as a deterrent. They needed him there so that Adam Lowry didn't have to do all the heavy lifting. They've got another guy in who's quite frankly going to be better at that role. He, as big as Logan Stanley is, Luke Schenn is more intimidating. I would suggest he's tougher. If he fights you, it's not just coming to a draw. He's going to try and punish you in that fight. And to be honest, Brandon Tanev, you saw him tonight again, is always stirring things up. And Brandon Tanev is, like one of those, gremlins you don't want to mess with out there. So there's 3 guys out there right now who would be more than happy to answer the bell in that way. There's enough of them. And there's other players out there that if they needed to, they could drop the gloves. Although not a ton of them, to be honest with you. It just doesn't seem to be that. It's not that breed of hockey player anymore. But I think for the most part, outside of injury, Ken, that would clearly change everything here. But Logan Stanley, to me, I think the writing is entirely on the wall. I thought Jay Bukala, for those of you who couldn't stand being on the last show because of the loss, Jay Bukala, for a lot of you, if you've been talking about Logan Stanley a lot, gave the breakdown that you've been waiting for of what was problematic about Logan Stanley. So if you haven't watched it, go back and watch that show. If you were watching Hockey Central earlier today, after my hit, he did the same thing. So if you could go see that, I'd go see that, because he backed it up with, video and kind of broke down all the kind of little things that were lacking in Logan Stanley's game. I think the Winnipeg Jets coaches have seen that the entire time. I think keeping him in the way that they did was a nod to their captain, to honor their captain, and to have someone else in there so it wasn't just Adam Lowry against the world. And now with Tanev and Schenn, it is not just Adam Lowry against the world. They've got guys who can handle that business. So I think that's pretty much that. Hey, it's been called for, Ken. You can say it after we come back from that, but it's been called for. Time to make this a Sean's Headband version of the Kenny and Renny Show. had something to say, Ken.
Just quickly, I don't think that Scott Arniel was being untruthful when he said he was a fan of Hainela's game, but quite frankly, Villy just never got back to the level he showed at training camp in the fall of 23. Again, I understand people arguing he should have been given a longer runway to do so. I don't think Villy Hainela gave Scott Arniel enough reasons to give him a longer leash. That is my personal view. And I'm not knocking the player or the person. It's a good person. He had a very good camp, but the nature of the injury and then what happened at training camp this year kind of put him behind the 8 ball. And he just never got back to that level. And that's one of the reasons why he has been limited to the number of games that he's played this year. So
I'm not suggesting he's being untruthful. I think that he says, we'll all want these guys, but I mean, his actions, he never said it out loud, but Logan Stanley became this team's de facto fifth defenseman, right?
yeah.
And the fact that when they go out and they make a single addition, right, in Luke Schenn, and he suddenly goes from being their number 5 defenseman to out of the lineup, should that continue, and I think we both think that it's going to, Ken, that tells you something. That in itself right there tells you about the reason he was in the lineup. He's been replaced by a guy who's more reliable, a better shot blocker, a fairly reliable puck-moving defenseman, a really, really smart guy, a good team guy. So suddenly Logan Stanley becomes expendable, but he doesn't become expendable to the point that he drops from the 5th hole to the 6th hole. He drops right out of the lineup. And I think that tells you everything that you need to know about why he was in the lineup. I've been saying it the whole time. Ken, I've got a million texts over the time, and I've said this time and time again, and all you out there who've sent me those messages can vouch for me. I said it's a point of keeping someone else out there so that Adam Lowry is not alone in trying to play the sheriff on this team. Sheriffs need deputies in the NHL, and now he's got a couple of good deputies, and that's why I think Logan Stanley finds himself out of the lineup. What an interesting position for Fleury to be in, though, right? It's like sit for the vast majority of the year, and if now all of a sudden he becomes the de facto number 6 defenseman and stays in the lineup and goes to play in the playoffs, I mean, good patience. Hey, unless you're a good teammate who doesn't stay engaged, stay in practice, stay with your guys. There's a lot of nights that I've done games and I've walked out and seen him wearing street clothes, Ken, and I've never seen him sulking or pouting or anything like that. That's how you're a guy who's in Fleury's position, where he's kind of for a long time now had one foot in an NHL lineup and one foot out of it. He's handled it well, and it looks like, I believe what's going to happen is he's going to get a real good opportunity to have a runway here.
For sure. I mean, 32nd game for Fleury, and honestly for him, Sean, just quickly, I mean, your point is very well taken. And Scott Arniel went out of his way to say Stan has to be in the lineup countless times, even though people are saying, oh, why is Stanley playing? I mean, it's obvious why, and you pointed out the reasons. But I mean, Fleury was a guy who was getting regular playing time. And when the injuries came to Dylan Samberg, he had the first crack at being on the second pairing. Then he got hurt with that strange play in Toronto, and then it sort of disrupted his rhythm. And when he came back, he didn't get to that level right away, which is natural when you miss as much time as he did. But today was one of those games where he was back to looking like he did kind of pre-injury for me. And if he can play that way, he can not only be in the league, he can be in the top 6 when the playoffs start. But I'm with you 100%. Hayden Fleury has been through a lot. He's been with a bunch of organizations. He's had some devastating injuries, including last year when he ran into the linesman and was done for the year. When you've been through that, Sean, when you think you're playing great hockey and you are playing for the Tampa Bay Lightning and you feel like you're turning the corner on a good hockey team, and all of a sudden you're sidelined for the rest of the year and having to take a 2-way contract, your perspective is pretty sharp. The game was taken away from him for those last couple of months. He worked his behind off, had to take a 2-way deal, made the team, all of a sudden was in the top 4. All of a sudden he was the 7th or 8th guy, and now he's back on the 3rd pairing for the best team in the NHL. He's moved to Edmonton, but he's from the prairies. He's from Saskatchewan. I can tell you right now, I think that Hayden Fleury would sign an extension tomorrow if the Jets offered him one. And he wants to be here. He has a great attitude. And like you said, when you've been around the block a little bit the way that he has, it would be easy to hang your lip, at least in private, but you never see him down in the dumps. He's always been upbeat and knows that when his opportunity comes, he had to be ready. And Schenn, he was ready. I mean, you can't play that way without putting in the work with conditioning, without doing your video work, and more importantly, without having the right attitude. It's a great example of keeping the right headspace. Instead of getting down in the dumps, he stays ready, and all of a sudden, there you are. Now you got a chance. Now you got a chance to run with it too.
I don't know how many Game of Thrones fans are out there, but I thought we were having our King Joffrey moment with Ken. I thought I lost you for a second there, buddy. I thought you were on your way out, so it's good to see that you're back.
Too much
We love
talking.
to we love to handle questions from the audience. Dom Zappia wants to know, why aren't we talking more about Nino? 4 goals in his last 37, no goals in his last 11. Ken, take it away. What do you think is the issue with Nino Niederreiter right now?
Yeah, I mean, so I did talk with Nino for a story that I did in Tuesday morning on Long Island after the morning skate, and Nino was. We know what Nino is. He's an accountable person. One of the first things he said was he needs to be better. Nino's at his best when he's around the blue paint, when he's making things happen, when he's feisty. Today he got involved physically, got a penalty for it. He tried to get involved with Andre Miller and pulled his helmet off and got a penalty. Nino, right now things are not going as smoothly for that third line as we're used to seeing. They're one of the best third lines in hockey. So today, Nino, 1 shot on net, 2 shot attempts, but he had 4 hits. So involved physically, to me, that's important for Niederreiter. He's not a guy that just hangs around the perimeter and looks for easy goals. He goes to the hard area to get his goals. So, is it a concern? Of course, it's a concern. Is it a red flag? No, I would put the caution flag up because naturally, when a guy like Niederreiter, who has been I think 7-time 20-goal guy, Schenn, he's been stuck on, what is it, 15 now? He's been stuck on 14 or 15, 14. He's been stuck on 14 for a long time. And that, doesn't sit well with him. And of course, the coaching staff needs, like we talk about complementary offense. Nino Niederreiter has to provide secondary scoring. And in some ways, he's an insulator for Cole Perfetti in some ways in the top 6 if Cole goes through a cold patch. But you can't have Nemesnikov, Perfetti, and Niederreiter all cold at the same time. So Niederreiter cold, Perfetti playing incredibly hot. Nemesnikov had gone through a little bit of a cold spell, but got a goal today and has mostly been playing well without getting a ton of production. So, of course, that line needs to get going a little bit more. I'm seeing more positive shifts from that line. Mason Appleton hasn't produced a pile of offense lately either, but Lowry's had a couple goals lately, so he's up to 14. His career high is 15, Schenn. He's had 16 games to eclipse his career high of 15. And again, this is not patting on the back, separating your shoulder time, but the day that Adam Lowry signed, we talked about the importance of Lowry signing. And when we had Elliott on, and he basically told us that GMs around the league were saying, hopefully this is one of the times when you're not actually accurate, because we wanted to take a run at him in free agency. Not only is he a great captain, but he's also producing at a high-end level while playing Selke level type of defense. So I would say it's a cautionary flag for Niederreiter, but I'm confident he'll get himself going. But for him, it's about pace. He's not a burner like a Nikolai Ehlers. He's a guy that's got to have his feet moving. He's got to get in on the forecheck, and he has to live around the blue paint to get himself going. He kind of needs a greasy one, Schenn. We see him every day in practice and at morning skates tipping pucks. I think that Niederreiter's got to get himself to the net and get a greasy goal, a nifty redirection, or get himself in a battle and a puck goes in off of him. Because this is a guy that also can score off the rush, Schenn. I mean, he's done it throughout his course of his career. He's had tons of top 6 minutes. So I think that, again, not a major concern, but definitely something that is noteworthy and worth worthy of discussion, which is why Dom brought it up in the first place.
That line is a train, right? And if you stop a train, it takes a little bit of time for that train to get back going again. And that's what I would summarize what's happening with that line. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but on the Dylan DeMello goal that was called back.
Yeah, he set it up.
Yeah, he set that goal up, right? It's a nice play. It's exactly what he does well. He works best when he gets below the goal line and then gets moving east to west so that the goaltender has to watch one post and then he's got to turn and he's got to watch the other post. That's what he does well. He did that in that play, found his guy. It's in the back of the net. Quick, Ken, did you think it was right that goal was called off?
In real time, no, but the clicking of the skates was hard to see, but obviously the coach's video showed it pretty clearly that the left skate of Barron, I think, clicked the skate of Shesterkin, and then it has to be called because, as you've pointed out every time this year, if the player voluntarily goes into the blue paint, even if he's involved in a physical battle, it's incumbent on him to not click the skate or the arm or the stick or any body part of the goaltender. So yes, I do agree that the call was correct. Again, like I said, in real time, I didn't really see much contact, but I wasn't looking at his feet. Yeah. So his feet definitely clicked. And when the feet click, it is no goal.
Yeah, Scott O'Neill said as much. He said the Jets would have made the same call and tried to get the goal called back. I've got John Liu as a witness. I said that goal was not going to stand. If you see what happens and where the problem is, as Ken says, Morgan Barron enters the crease on his own. He's not really pushed into the goaltender. And what he does is he sets up his skate as a wall so that when the Rangers goaltender...
Othman, I think, right?
Sorry. As Shesterkin tries to push across, he can't move. He pushes, and his skate hits a wall. So he's not able to move in the direction he needs to make the stop on the puck. So that one I thought was pretty cut and dry and pretty obvious. I know everyone was upset about it, but surprise, surprise, Jets fans thinking that the refs are out to get them or that they got the call wrong. That one was pretty standard, I thought. Anyways, to get back to that, Nino Niederreiter, what's that?
Just it was Vakanainen, the defenseman. It wasn't Othman. It was Vakanainen was the guy he was battling with.
Right. Regardless, so that's the kind of play that we're seeing from him. From Nino Niederreiter. That's back to what he does and what he does well. There's definitely not as much of a clicking between those three players when it comes to what we are seeing though potentially, Ken, is what we've seen in the playoffs the last number of years, that at this time of year, Adam Lowry is able to elevate his game into a place where he's, it's almost like you can expect points from Adam Lowry more often at the end of the year than you can at the beginning of the year, because he's just kind of built for this time of year. But if you remember, 2 years ago, it was between he and Blake Wheeler for leading the team in scoring. And I don't know that Mason Appleton was up there or Nino Niederreiter were up there. I wonder how much that line is just, and I've said this before, I think the Winnipeg Jets are a team that comes out of training camp in a higher gear than most other teams. That line, like I said, once you get that train rolling, it's hard to slow down. And I think when you've got what I believe is one of the best, if not the best, third lines in hockey rolling at its peak at the beginning of the season, when players aren't even invested in barely doing the right thing or the details, they don't want to be worrying about grinding against these guys. They just give up the puck so much easier. I will say this. I need to see more from Mason Appleton going down the stretch. I need to see more from Nino Niederreiter. I would almost think of the idea, and here it comes, Ken. You've been waiting for this for the longest time. I know people are thinking, yeah,
turn the volume up.
Move them up the lineup. I would be open to, and this is the only time that I've been interested in going this direction. I would be interested in seeing Tanev on that line, potentially replacing Mason Appleton, because he too can act as the tip of the spear, the thing that makes Mason Appleton so good. But I think he's more dynamic, and I think that we saw his scoring ability when he was with Adam Lowry last time he was here was an interesting thing. So if I'm looking for the third line to break up, it's not to break that up and move Nino up the lineup and try and find more scoring from him. It's not the job of other lines, especially the second line or someone like that, to wake up Nino Niederreiter, who's not producing offensively. That's the spark I would look for in that situation. Although the fourth line is looking really good as well. Someone had said, made the comment quickly, Ken, before we do move on here.
Yep.
Someone had made the comment that changed my mind. I think they'd said the fourth line has passed the third line in effectiveness. I think it's kind of hard to say that when Adam Lowry's been doing what he's doing lately, but right now, the third line is a train that got stopped with the loss of Adam Lowry to injury and the loss of Mason Appleton to injury. And it is chugging along with the wheels spinning a little bit right now. Absolutely no doubt about that. Ken?
And just quickly, one thing on Barron, I loved him at center, but after 2 strong days in the circle, just 1 and 5, so one out of 6 for only 17%. So his numbers took a bit of a hit, but I like the dynamic that he is providing on that fourth line. And just quickly to tie up, again, we're not getting into numbers overly, but only 1 assist for Appleton in the last 7 games. Also, he's trying to get himself back going too. So agreed with you totally. Tanev is a guy who, he got a bump up shift late with Scheifele and Connor. I do think he was out there with Lowry once, but that was more related to coming out of a power play situation. I think it was with Appleton and Tanev. So it's another weapon or an option that Scott O'Neill has. But yeah, just quickly on Barron, what have you thought of him down the middle? Because I've actually quite liked that fourth line also.
Well, to be honest, I mean, it says something about him that a guy that you have not had at center all year, when you get a lineup that you're thinking we just want these specific guys in, that they go and they try him out at that point. It's clear that the Winnipeg Jets think that fourth line is, with Tanev now, maybe that's a little bit different. And it's crazy to think that with Iafallo, who's just like a really, really intelligent player and has that offensive upside. But I think that the Jets do believe the power of that fourth line is Morgan Barron. So the fact that they've tried that is just an effort to make sure that they can keep him in the lineup in different kinds of ways. I think it's earned. Paul Edmonds, the guy who calls Jets games on the radio for CJOB, big believer. I hope I'm not taking anything away, but behind the scenes, I'll have these conversations. He's a big Morgan Barron guy. So I've liked what he's done. I think he's earned the potential spot there. It would be interesting though. Can we know this? When rookies make their way into the league, they can show up, right? In their first 3-4 games. And it's like, what happens to that guy at game 20, game 25, game 30, right? It's hard to do it over and over and over again. I'll say this about Morgan Barron. If that's his stat line tonight and his stat line continues to start looking like that, we know I know the analytics community doesn't value faceoffs very highly. All NHL coaches do, and clearly Scott O'Neill does. He'd need to make sure that he was keeping those numbers up. Otherwise, they're going to find a way to shoehorn maybe a guy like Rasmus Kupari back in there just to make sure that they've got that squared off on that side. They're already making different decisions on the penalty kill, putting Mark Scheifele out there in the absence of Rasmus Kupari. So, if with that hole already in the lineup, if Morgan Barron continues to create another hole by not getting the stat line he needs at center ice, you're going to find Rasmus Kupari finding his way back in the lineup. Ken, you got to give Sweet Lou a shout out before we hand out some awards here.
You bet. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, buying, selling, curious what the house in the corner is going for, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty. You can reach him at 204-791-9971 or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of this community, including our podcast.
All right, let's start with the Lampy tonight, Ken. What do you got?
Yeah, I understand. I like the net drive by Perfetti, and sure, but I actually prefer the power play goal. And yes, there was an element of luck involved, and Perfetti admitted it. But at the same time, his ability to still keep the puck near enough that he could go to the backhand and find Gabe Vilardi in quiet ice for a 1T from the slot. I'm going with the power play marker in this one, even though, again, both the Jets goals were pretty. And Again, Zibanejad's power play marker is nice also, but I'm going with the Velarde power play marker.
If you call it luck, this is most definitely one of those times you got to be good to be lucky.
For sure,
lucky
that's
to be good. Yes, it's a flub play, right? He's trying to kind of jam the puck short side on the post, and then the puck flubs off his stick. I'm telling you right now, in that moment, there's a fraction of human beings in the world, a fraction of hockey players who have the reflexes and the hands and the wherewithal to not only flub that puck, to get to it as quick as possible. Most guys just hack away at that, but to get to it and then find perfectly on the stick of the guy in front of the net.
Yeah.
Like yes, there's a luck element in that because the goaltender has to respect the fact that he's trying to jam it short side. So he glues him to the post. That's the lucky part about it. Once he gets it to Gabe Velarde, the goaltender has absolutely no chance in this situation. But I'm telling you, Ken, 5% of the players in this league, you know who on the Winnipeg Jets would have been able to recover and get that puck and put it to the front of the ice? There's 3 guys. And that actually, there's probably 4 guys. There's 4 guys on the Jets. The Jets have, it's one of the reasons their power play is so good. But Nick Ehlers could have made that recovery. Mark Scheifele could have made that recovery. Gabe Velarde, just because he's Mr. Hands and one of the best sets of hands in the league, could have made that recovery. And Kyle Connor, and that's it. But outside, if I'm looking at the Rangers, I think it's maybe Panarin and Zibanejad. And there's teams out there who don't have a guy on their team whose hands would be fast enough to recover like that. So the reason I like that goal is because there's like the mindset of it is a stick-to-itiveness that, yes, I flubbed it, but I'm going to stick with it. And I'm not just going to make a player whack at the puck. I'm going to, after messing this up, get to it faster than the defender and move the puck to the right guy in the right spot at the right moment. That is another one of these things where Cole Perfetti is starting to show up and be exactly what Tristan said, which was hot take extraordinaire at the beginning of the show, going from a top 6 type player to a top 6 player. That is my and Ken's TCB Lamplighter of the game. Doesn't matter what we think. Share with us your TCB Lamplighter. You're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your own 8-pack, you should go get your own down at 1290 Kenniston, where you can join them in their store or their tap room. And if you're there, get yourself a pizza. Do yourself a favor. Try some of the different beers that they have on tap there. They're all delicious. Lots of options, lots of different things to try there. But boy, oh boy, when it comes to the Lamplighter, you know that it's the nectar of the gods, as this person is about to find out. Scott Westman. Scotty, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. It is the nectar of the gods. And that brings us to the keg save of the game. What do you got, Ken?
A couple great ones late for sure. The Kreider breakaway was a good save. But, I think you and I are in agreement based on our text messaging. I thought that the one-timer save off Mika Zibanejad in the second period, and this is another classic. This is one that he makes look super easy, but this is a incredibly great save, positionally sound. This is the under the in the dictionary, if you're looking at the big and boring, this is it. This is the save they show on the clips. Economical in his movements from left to right and getting out in front and making a beautiful save off Zibanejad, who again, we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on the Rangers, Sean, but Zibanejad was their best player, and it was by a landslide. His engagement compared to the game earlier this year in New York, night and day. I loved his game. Penalty killing, power play, 5-on-5. Loved his game.
This is just like a look of perfection in a save, because he jumps the route, knows where they're going. he handles this so calmly. Everyone talks about big and boring, but as much of an individual effort as this is, and it is, Ken, this still remains a team save. So when you hear Connor Hellebuyck and how he's talked about his team this year and what makes them so good in front of him, is he said that, like, and Ken, if you remember, it was last year when he signed that extension, he came out, and I remember in that conversation, he was talking about himself as a goaltender. He is talking about trying to get better in that offseason at, like, getting an idea of where the puck was going, right? Making saves mentally by understanding I'm going to get to that spot before the other guy does because I'm going to know where it's going and I'm going to jump the route. You don't get to be a goaltender who jumps the route as confidently and as, stoically as he does if you don't have a team in front of you that's constantly cleaning things up, constantly allowing you to see where the puck is going, and not having to worry, being able to have a look around the ice because all the guys in front of you are tied up and taken care of. And you don't need to worry about them. So you can take a look around and be like that guy on the boards. If the puck gets over to him, there's going to be a one-timer. Connor Hellebuyck is a phenomenal goaltender, but he gets to make saves like that. And that while it looks like he's the only guy on the ice who gets it, he gets to be that guy because of how great the Winnipeg Jets play in front of him. But that, to me, was no doubt, Ken, just as calmly and quietly a keg save of the game as you could make in a situation that should have been chaotic and looking crazy. Regardless, that's our hashtag the keg save of the game. Doesn't matter what we think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. And for our last show, the winner of the keg save of the game, that would be Donna Mason. Donna, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. Anything to say? Kennything, do you have anything to say before we get out of the show here?
No, I think we've got it pretty much covered here. Yeah, I mean, the one thing too with Pionk, I guess, getting banged up there, as I said at the end of the last or on our last show, he looked like he was kind of limping quite heavily, but he was able to get ready and roll today. And I mean, we've seen Neil Pionk battle through a lot of things, but we'll have to continue to monitor that. Probably no one will benefit more from the 2-day break before the monumental matchup on Friday than Neil Pionk. And again, what a great tilt it's going to be on Friday night. This is what it's all about in the last quarter of the year. Jockeying for position, 2 heavyweights stepping into the ring. We're going to see Mikko Rantanen again, Sean. And we both enjoy, having watched Mikko at his very best, we enjoy watching him live. Sometimes the Jets don't always enjoy watching him live based on how he's played against them. But this is going to be an absolutely fantastic tilt, and can't wait for it.
Yeah, potential playoff preview here, folks. Potential.
Oh, sorry, my last thing, Sean. Sorry, I think maybe, and he would not be in that spot normally. I think we should include Morrissey as one of the Jets players that probably could recover in time to make that type of play on the backhand, even though he wouldn't be down. He wouldn't find himself down there.
Yeah, I honestly don't think so, and that's not taking anything away from Josh, but that's a special kind of reaction from what we're seeing there. Unbelievable stuff. Anyways, time for us to go. If you appreciate the conversations happening in this space before we do go, if you've been enjoying this content, we would appreciate it if you would, or we would implore you to appreciate the contributions made by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Ferlin, Flame and Comfort, TCB, The Keg, and of course the Kenny and Renny OGs in the Johnson Group. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you folks. Big tilt. We'd love to talk all about it with you afterwards on Friday night. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.